And I remember, that I've studied this UFO things when I was a teenager, and I remember being called crazy and being called, "Oh, you're wasting your time with that." And of course, today the Pentagon admitted publicly that they exist, and a lot of people are wanting to, you know, uh, destroy themselves because oh, science never found anything. Oh, science, like as if science was this group of eminent people that know it all. That's not the case. Like we have absolutely no technology to be sure there is no life, intelligent life in other galaxies. We don't have enough. We've seen like the universe, like according to science, we can perceive 5% of what actually exists from multiple, the infinite dimensions, infinite. There are like a lot of galaxies, and actually, what people don't mention about life in other planets is that the scientists they say that they agree that the probabilities of having life are very high because if there's only one planet with life in each galaxy, we have over 100 billion planets. We're only talking about this dimension. We're not talking about the multiverse, and which are all things that are part of science. They are not just science fiction, but those are things that people are talking now and say, oh, if you see some astronomer going and say, oh, that doesn't exist. No, you can't. You don't have enough elements. You don't have enough technology to say no, that doesn't exist because we don't even know our own oceans here.
Right, 80% of the ocean we haven't explored.
So
can't explore.
I'm sorry, I get nervous.
Well, and here's an example. You're let's say you've never seen a house before or a building. Let's say you've never seen a building before, and you're walking through the woods. 8 guys who've never seen a building before walking through the woods and stumble upon a house, and you could all come to different conclusions. You all have the same evidence in front of you. And maybe you stumble across more evidence later. A guy who says he built the house. But, like, one guy might be like, oh, someone obviously built this, created this. Some other guy might be like, no, like, someone, this is obviously created by, like, it just, after years and years, the trees turned into this house, Someone else says, oh, like, you can come up with so many conclusions. You've got so much evidence there. There's a lot of evidence we might not have, but we're all working with the same facts, or for the most part, it's just a matter of how do you interpret those facts. What conclusion do you come to with the same materials in front of you? And a lot of it comes to your presupposition. Where do you start? What presupposition are you coming to the table with? And your own personal bias, which we all have.
That's why one of the wisest men ever said, I know that I know nothing.
Right.
We have this Dunning-Kruger syndrome that is so evident today in social media that people that know less, they are more confident than people that know more. Yeah. So the actual people that study stuff, they are actually more insecure. Are you familiar with that?
Yeah. Well, it's like the more you know, the
you
more you
experience that in your life. Because
the more you know, the more you realize you don't know a lot. That's how it is. I mean, I'm that way. I'm a writer too. And the more I read, the more I realize how much I haven't read. Yeah. And as a writer, the more I read and the more I write, the more I realize how high the bar can be. I mean, what was it? What's his name? I want to say Jacob Marley. Brandon Marlowe. It was the guy, the contemporary of Shakespeare.
John?
Marlon Brando? No. That's the actor. No. Okay, so
Vito Corleone.
So Shakespeare's contemporary, he said that Shakespeare was a good writer, was as good or one of the best writers, even though his Latin was bad and his Greek was atrocious. He was still one of the greatest writers, even though that was the case. It used to be expected that if you're going to be a good writer, you have to be fluent in Greek and ancient Greek and Latin. Now we've just kind of, J.K. Rowling can come and drop a bestseller without having, barely learned English,
One of the we go back to that, but in this regard of knowing, thinking that you know everything, there's a beautiful story in Brazil that a friend of mine that unfortunately passed, Rafael, he used to tell the story in the end of his lectures, and it's one of my favorite stories. He said, "Well, there's this native and this white man on a beach."
Hmm.
So the native goes on a sand and he draws this circle and he said, "Well, this is everything that we know, we the natives."
Hmm.
Okay? Then, of course, the white man, so egotistical and proud, he draws a huge circle around the native circle. He said, "Well,
Right.
this is what white men know."
Right. Yeah.
And then the native goes there and draw a still bigger circle around both circles and said, "Well, this is what both you and our people don't know."
Yeah.
So no matter how much you know, it's still a lot more than you don't know.
Right. And
So
the more you learn, the more you study, the more you realize, yeah, there's so much more.